programs is being able to secure the matches. And you can see the number of projects that each of the sites and partner divisions have put forward for this coming year. So you get the idea that it's a matching program, and it's a way of having new collaborations that otherwise people might not be incentivized to consider. Okay, and the way it goes, it's $60,000 a year total for 2 years. So it's up to $120,000 total project cost over 2 years. And another key thing about it, it's really the graduate students who are the glue to these SEED programs, okay? So again, you have graduate students working in their units. This particular SEED programs allows expanded horizons, it improves the student experience, gets the disciplines working in new and interesting ways together. And that way it allows graduate students to even have a greater networking and greater interactions and synergistic productivity. So in terms of eligibility for the principal investigators, one has to have a primary appointment in some unit within applied science and engineering, and the other PI has to be outside of engineering. So for EMHSeed it would be in medicine, or for XSeed it would be in arts and science. Again, the PI has to be eligible to hold tri-council funding. And the reason why this is important is because we have expectations that the EMHSeed program, other than being a really great experience, to start partnering and looking and doing cool things, it is expected to lead to future successful funding, operating funds being secured, and the tri-councils are a common mechanism to do that. Again, we want to make sure that a wide pool of potential applications comes through, so there are limitations as to who can hold how much EMHSeed funding at any given time, and it is meant then you can't have like one person having multiple seed projects together, because hoarding all the resources. That's not what this is about. It's really about a way of spreading the good works and the good citizenship amongst our divisions. I'll take it from there and I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the review criteria, so we do have, it is a vetted program. We do have a review committee. So we need the full completed application form, including the attachments, and the letters of support from the departments and the institutes. So here's what we're really looking for. We're looking for new opportunities. So this isn't really designed to fund ongoing, long-lasting collaborations that have been running for some number of years. This is new ideas, putting new collaborations together. There needs to be a clear and overarching goal. It's a research-driven program, so we are looking for a strong program of research. Excellence in research, this is demonstrated both through the excellence of the PIs, but also through the scope of the proposal, so it's a combination of those two. I want to emphasize a clear plan on collaboration. Because the ones that tend to fall off the table relatively quickly sound like, 90% of the work is stuff that's already going on in this lab, and then we found someone else doing something similar for 10% and they're going to come in. Those get picked off really quickly. It's easy to find those, actually, when you read them over, and those fall, no problem. Those fall to the wayside very quickly. So it has to be a really collaborative research endeavor. The other thing is we're looking for is a gateway to major funded partnership. This is not the idea is not to fund a one-shot, one-off type of thing. What we'd like to do is this actually is seed money for a long-lasting collaboration. So there has to be some plan for the future, the sustainability of the research beyond just the 2 years of funding. Compelling annual milestones. Well, I mean, it seems kind of obvious, right? If you've got 2 years, kind of like to know what your plans are, what the goals are for those 2 years. And the more specific you can be about that, the better. And again, just to be really clear on the emphasis, it's a true collaboration and a true partnership, not only for the PIs, but for the students. So we're really looking for the students getting engaged between the two divisions. I guess the 3 divisions in 2 ways. So what is the little bit of feedback from the review committee? So really clearly define the role of each partner. Pay a special attention to the criterion. Right, again, this is a little bit of what we said before. It's a true collaboration. It's not two parallel projects. I'm working on this, something with water. Someone over here is working with something with water. We're going to stick the two of them together. It needs to have an actual research-driven rationale. Applicants should not have collaborated before. Again, we're not looking to sustain existing collaborations. We're looking to create new collaborations. Clearly define the student role, specific goals and methodologies here. I want to emphasize that this is a really important part of when we go through the vetting process. It's what is the student experience in this? What is the student collaborations? What are they getting out of it? It's really designed, because we know from PIs, Ramin and I, we can have the best of intentions to get two things done, but it's the students, the graduate students are going to be doing the work on the ground at the coalface. So it really needs to be about their experience. And it is seed funding. This is not the idea to, supplement your insert grant or a CHR grant. This is to build the road to a path for such grants. And as we mentioned before, for people who've been in the program before, you can only hold one at one time. So we're not interested in doubling up. I'm gonna take over.
Sure. All right, so these are some examples of past projects which shows you the partner divisions and partner units. Every so often we get inquiry whether my department or my unit is going to be supporting the proposal that I'm putting together. So this gives you an idea. And by the way, these slides will be posted online and you would be able to access that. So this might be useful for you to have a look. And as Richard and Jay mentioned earlier, we have been running these seed funding programs for a few years now, and that gives you a glimpse of how many projects and how many students are involved. I was looking at the numbers. I think we are a few hundred students and PIs combined which have benefited from these seed funding programs. Currently, I think we're probably around 150 or so PIs and students who are engaged among the two programs, so it's sizable.
Maybe just one thing to point out for the XSeed, for the arts and science one is, we're funding up to 4 XSeeds, but we hold 2 of those for collaborations with our humanities and social science units, right? It's kind of easy for chemists, our chemists and say chemical engineers to collaborate. That's not exactly new and novel. That happens all the time. For an arts and science perspective, we're really interested in getting engineers working with our humanities units and our social sciences. So we hold 2 slots open, and as you can see from the list if you like the list from before, we've had political science, we've had geography. So we really encourage, from an arts and science standpoint, we really encourage those collaborations.
I couldn't emphasize more, and partly, since in fact we started, this is even more important because partly now we have NFRF, New Research Frontiers Fund, which emphasizes on those kind of interdisciplinary collaborations. Right, so that's the information about the submission process. 12 noon, Friday, March 20th. We expect completed application form. I'll look at the application form in a minute. Letters of support confirming financial contribution from the department institutes. Now, additional details is included in the call for proposals. For partner units, arts and science, medicine, engineering, UTM, UTSC, we don't expect a letter of support from vice deans. No. But from other divisions, we do, right? And the reason is that we already have a blanket agreement with these units. So University of Toronto, Mississauga, University of Toronto, Scarborough, arts and science, medicine, and engineering, already we have dedicated budget in our annual budgets for these things. That may not be the case for other divisions, so we would need letters of support for other divisions. And the CVs. Now, CVs of co-PIs, it can be in a format that you have. Ideally, it's an insert or like a CCV, but we are not frankly too picky about the type of CD that you're providing. The intent, as you will see in a minute, is that to make the application process less onerous on you. So a quick review of the form that you're expecting to see when you're applying to this program. You need to identify whether you're applying to EMHSeed and XSeed. And that's important because there will be two different adjudication for these two. As Jay mentioned, we have adjudication process. There will be two adjudication processes. Different panels will review this. Under the EMHSeed program, as you notice from a table that Richard briefly mentioned about that, there's opportunity to also apply to Medicine by Design and TBEP. Medicine by Design and TBEP, they have their own guidelines. So please contact Medicine by Design and TBEP to develop your projects in a way that is relevant to those two initiatives and is in compliance with their requirements. We need some information of the PIs, and the rest of it is pretty straightforward. As per, these questions are as per the guideline and criteria which was described earlier. I just wanted to emphasize again this last item, part 8. This is something that we added for Medicine by Design and TBEP, emphasizing that please, if you're applying to these two programs or you think that your application can be eligible for Medicine by Design and TBEP funding, then you need to justify that. And that justification is in reference to the requirement of Medicine by Design and TBEP. Right. The rest of it is, frankly, just a copy of the call, and I'm just going to stop at this point and open for the questions if you have. And also, those individuals who are watching live, we have a live stream of these presentations. They may send their questions online, and we will be entertaining those questions as well.
How long should applicants typically expect to wait to hear back after they've submitted their?
Good question.
So can you repeat in case someone's listening on?
Yes. So the question is when the applicant or an applicant would hear back about the results of application. Elaine, when have we set up the adjudication for? So we already set adjudication sessions for the first week of April, so by mid-April you should be hearing back.
And the release of funds happens pretty quickly after that too.
Right.
Yeah.
So the target is that by September, hopefully you will have a student who would be able to, or you may actually have a student earlier. So just another question sometimes PIs ask, you don't necessarily need to hire a new student. So if you have a student who is already working on a project, that student can also be benefiting from this program, and so you just fund it through this program. Right. There was a question here?
Yeah, you said you just wanted to fund one lab at a time. Was that per program or across both programs? You don't want to see multiple applications?
From the same PI.
Right. So the question is, would we receive multiple applications from the same PI? We have had cases where an applicant or one applicant, right, was involved in more than one application. Even if both of them are, let's say, ranked highly and eligible for funding, only one of them will be ranked or funded. So
that's for both programs combined, not per program.
that will be per program. Okay. So if you don't have any XSeed, you're eligible for one XSeed at any time. You cannot hold two XSeed at the same time. If you're eligible for EMHSeed, you cannot hold two EMHSeed at any time. But you can have an XSeed and EMHSeed at the same time.
Will having one impact the other?
No.
No, they're two,
Different adjudication
yeah,
processes.
two separate,
Yeah.
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 The only person who knows there would be in both is him.
And I will-
So blame him.
I don't know what he does, yeah, so that's good.
I will communicate certainly the results. We have good channel of communication.
Yeah.
So.
But otherwise, we treat them as two separate processes.
Okay.
And you know, just out of interest, you know, like the outcomes of these things, you know, why we're continuing to encourage and support these particular seeding opportunities. If you actually look on who's gone on to get subsequent extramural competitive funding, like the return on investment is about 8 to 1, which is not bad, you know, so it makes it worth our while to support this.
Yeah. So frankly, I mean, it's, as was mentioned earlier, we like to see these proposals to grow into a bigger thing.
Yeah.
We like to see all of them to grow in bigger things. And for that reason, we will be following up with you as alumni of this program through, not just through the period that you are actually receiving funding, but later on. Elaine keeps a good contact with all our seed funding programs alums. Because we do like to see how this investment, which is a real investment by our faculties, is impacting your success and also our success. Your success is our success. Yeah. Question.
If you're in the second year of an EMHSeed grant, can you apply with a brand new collaborative effort for another one?
That's a good question. I'm going to discuss that or pass it to, because you're going to have, okay, the reason I'm saying is a good question, because technically, this EMHSeed call would have been launched, we postponed it a little bit, so it would have been launched in December, which means you wouldn't be eligible. And my inclination is that we treat it as such, but I leave it with my colleague.
No, I agree. We shouldn't let our own, internal machinations and logistics. Again, we're trying to encourage the spirit of the program, not trying to get in on a technicality, okay? That's not what this is about, okay? It's about citizenship at the University of Toronto. So, really take the high road on this kind of stuff.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do.
Right, and frankly, as you heard earlier, spread the opportunity among a wider group of
Yeah.
faculty members, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're considering, or in this case, PIs are considering to reapply to the EMHC program.
But with like a different.
I understand,
Yeah,
exactly.
we understand.
Can the funds be used for postdoctoral fellows or only for graduate students?
It depends on the topic and the discipline. In engineering, the answer is no. So if you're thinking of hiring a PDF for engineering, the answer is no. I defer that to.
So it's like, again, we use grad students as a way of the glue for the program. So we really wanted to be part of the graduate studies experience as opposed to postdocs in EMHSeed. XSeed, I can't speak for Jay.
We will prioritize graduate students as well.
You'll prioritize graduate students compared to, I'm guessing you can have non-graduate students apply as well?
Let's put it, you can apply anybody you want, but whether the adjudication committee will look at it favorably or not, I can't guarantee you that.
So there will be, just to clarify, you will not be scored on that category,
Yeah.
right? This will not be scored as highly, so it will be disadvantage.
Yeah.
It's not be rejected, it's not a go, no go, but it will bring overall score of the project low.
Yeah. Mhm.
Sorry, in faculty medicine, some of our clinical colleagues have fellows versus graduate students. Would that count, even if they have dedicated research time, or is it mostly, does it have to be a?
It's really meant to have it's really meant for graduate studies, because even clinical faculty do have graduate studies appointments, and they can supervise graduate students too.
Are there any questions online, Elaine? Okay.
Okay, I have to go. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and best wishes, and hope to see some really good applications.
Yes, question?
How are you defining not having worked together before? Like, if there's people who are meeting but have not yet received funding, would that count?
Absolutely. So this is meant to be the opportunity that you can take advantage of and make those initial thoughts into an actual project, right? So that's precisely what we want to see. And this is a good question because somebody else was asking me a question that they applied to the XSeed last round and they didn't receive funding. They hired an undergraduate student over the last year to do some in preliminary. I said, perfect. That's perfect. This would be the seed that can basically help you to grow that collaboration to something bigger. So those are the type of things we want to see.
Just to follow up on that, so it's okay if they have paper together, they have published papers together?
Publication of paper, if it is on the same topic, it has to be looked at, right? So if you, let's say, I don't know which department but let's say, I work with a colleague on development of adsorbent materials, right? And I publish a paper with them, and now I want to apply for funding to continue that collaboration. It's the same thing. You heard Richard saying that, this is not to fund something which is already going on, it's to start something new.
You could look at it this way, if the quality of the application of the proposal was even, the ones that are having a great collaboration for graduate students and the ones with a new collaboration are gonna rise a little bit higher than the other ones.
Right. Thank you, Jay. Similar to my earlier comment and response, on that category, and we have category for all of this, the project which involves PIs that have been working on the same idea for a while and maybe at a publication will be scored less. Okay?
So basically, your principal applicant will be a graduate student, but what if you have a team of graduate students that want to work on it together?
Well, the applicants are PIs, are professors.
Yeah.
Right, but the funding is for graduate students.
So you can have multiple graduate students on the application for a specific project?
Maybe.
We had a case, right? We had a case, yes, with UTM. So the short answer is yes. We had case where there were 3 professors involved on the same application, but the money is not increased, right?
Yeah.
So how you spend that money and how you distribute it, we recognize that the stipend going to graduate students may be very much dependent on, and the funding support required may be very much dependent on the units. So with $30,000 a year, you may support 3 students or 2 students, or maybe just 1 student. We leave it with you. And of course, when we look into the impact, right, this would be one area that in terms of a HQP training, a project that has more students, if it is justified, again, going back to what Jay said, we look at these things very carefully. It will be ranked higher. Yeah.
I think you would want to have a relatively even split with the graduate students. I think applications that had 5 from one lab and 1 from another would not probably be as competitive. And I think we've also had cases in the past where it was pretty clear that one of the graduate students was there not so much for their intellectual contribution to the project, but there for some technical expertise that they were supplying. And that also does not rise as high.
Right. Wanted to echo that. That's another category that we have seen frequently, that because I have a nice gadget, I'm a collaborator on a project.
Right, I have a graduate student that runs the gadget, so this is to get them to do my work, essentially subcontracting. Subcontracting is not what we're looking to do here.
Right. And those are easy to pick up.
Hi, so I'm from social sciences, and I'm working, so the engineering has very, very high stipends for their students, whereas we typically have our students do a lot of TAing, and our stipends as PIs are much smaller. So sort of the portion of the grant, if I got it, would go to field expenses for my students to go to Africa. That's all fine? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we understand that there's a huge variety of funding models, even within arts and science, much less between the 2 divisions. So just make a case for the budget.
Yeah. There's an opportunity to explain it.
Yeah, justify the budget. We'll figure it out.
Is there still a focus on early career faculty, preference for that?
We relaxed that requirement this time. We look at all those things, but we like to see the excellent proposals.
It used to be a priority, a stated priority. It is not a stated priority anymore.
And to be honest with you, I mean, from our experience, one of the reasons we suggest to relax, because early career research is on top. We didn't need to prioritize them. I mean, those ideas and the new, fresh ideas typically come from, new collaboration is typically, it's the early career that are looking for new collaboration, exciting stuff. So we didn't feel that we need to,
I think they put more effort into the
Exactly.
into the proposal as well.
Nicer proposal, right? Better ideas.
Some of the mailed in ones, they were not junior faculty.
Yeah. So we didn't need that requirement.
Probably more or less the same question, but is there any, I didn't see any guidance about this
Postdoc, as I was saying, in engineering, we don't want to see postdoc.
Yeah,
That's other than that,
Into research costs or things
Right.
that you were gonna need depending on the
Right.
nature of the project.
right. Another thing is that we don't ideally want to see purchase of equipment, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, so it has to be operating costs that we like to see as part of this. Yeah.
But I think it's a good example. So the travel, the notion of, this work would have to be done somewhere else. There's gonna be some travel costs, there's gonna be operational costs. Those are, right, we do not wanna,
Lab fees or.
yeah, we're not interested in buying 5 computers split between 2 labs.
And I see Tim is in the audience, and going back to the comment that Rick said before he left about the leverage and the benefits, I don't want to put you on the spot, Tim, but you received a grant before. Maybe you can share some of your experiences with the audience.
Sure. This does kind of feel like putting me on the spot, but I'll answer it anyways. So I got an EMHSeed a couple of years ago. It just wrapped up. It was with the critical care doc from UHN, and it was a great experience for me. We had never worked together before, but we worked in a new area. We leveraged up. I don't think we got to 8x, but we got to at least 5 or 6x in terms of external funding, like a couple of grants afterwards.
Great.
Some papers, a few grad students trained, and plans for more clinical work to follow up to technical work that we did. So it was a great experience overall.
Thank you.
I have to say from the vetting side, from our side, I mean, these are really fun proposals to read. This is probably one of the more enjoyable aspects of our jobs on a yearly basis.
True.
Because the best of these ones, they're innovative, they're interesting, they're unexpected. So it's a good thing.
Any questions online? Not yet? Okay. Question?
This is related to some of the questions asked. So is there an expectation that the budget is split somewhat evenly? Because if, say, in psychology, the grad students cost, like under 8K or 9K, and ours cost 15 to 16, I don't really understand how we can both make the budget evenly split and the number of HQP evenly split between the 2 units.
Right. So these numbers are maximum. In other words, for the engineering, the maximum cost is 30K. For partner division, maximum is 30K. Which means, let's suppose the expenses and costs for the social science humanity research is not 30K. I'm sure that
That's
you wouldn't
probably the
mind,
case, actually, yes.
right?
that is.
I'm sure that Jay wouldn't mind to support less funding, right? So this meant to be a reasonable cost which reflect the project.
It reflects the reality of the situation,
Exactly.
right? So you don't have to, we're not looking for dollar-to-dollar, equation on these sort of things. It's one graduate student here, one graduate student there, we need some operating costs, put it together.
Yep.
We know how it works.
Yeah, but what we can't do is that, okay, this is 15K, so 15K can be going to the engineering research. No, frankly, I don't think that's...
Right, there's a wall between the 2 units,
Right.
the 2 divisions.
Okay, so up to 30K for engineering project, up to 30K for the
Arts and science
arts and
side.
science or other partner
Units.
divisions.
Yeah, you can't save money on one and move it in the other.
Right.
It's not fungible, as they like to say in the
If
business
you
world.
don't have it to get to 30K, you don't need it.
No.
Yeah, no,
No.
exactly.
It's really, it's driven by the research and the collaboration. The costs are what the costs are, just be realistic about it. But, what's gonna rise at the end of the day is the quality of the collaboration and the quality of the research.
Can you go into a little more detail about what letters of partnership or commitment are required for the application?
Right, so let's suppose I'm a professor at the Department of Chemical Engineering. I would approach my chair and I say that I'm applying to XSeed, and he's familiar with that. He has provided letters in the past, and request the letter. And they have a standard letter, title of your project, your name, or my name, and then saying that we're happy to support this project at $15,000 per year for 2 years. So very simple, few lines. And then that letter, because I'm an engineer and I'm submitting through the engineering, that letter is all I need from engineering. because the vice dean researcher happened to be myself, we already have blanket agreement among ourselves and the budget dedicated. So I no need to, those letters, by the way, is just to confirm that the unit is aware that they're on the hook, right? So I know, and he knows that he's on the hook for these projects, but department chairs need to endorse it. Now, if I am, let's say, a PI at Rotman, that may not be the case. So it may be that, very likely, that Rotman has not set aside the budget. So then we need not only the, let's say, the support from the local unit, but also at the faculty level. Okay? So in the call for proposals, if you look at the call, there are terms and explanations there, but if you have any question at any time, you can send your inquiries to Elaine, and we will be responding to you.
I think it's safe to say your chairs, every single of your chairs have seen these
Exactly.
multiple times.
Right.
I would say in arts and science, the science chairs have probably all seen them by now. The social sciences, a few, the humanities, less so. In arts and science, most of the time, in some cases you go to the chair. In some cases, you go to the graduate chair, depending on how the unit is. But I think it's been around long enough that there's pretty good understanding within arts and science. There's, I would say, 100% understanding on the engineering side,
Right.
how this works.
Right. And for UTM and UTSC, unfortunately, Bernie and Kent could not make it today. They're out of campus. But the best way is that to approach your department and also to contact their offices. Right? Because Bernie and Kent are strong supportive of these proposals and these programs, and they will be guiding you through the internal process within UTM and UTSC.
So the two from arts and science that are reserved for humanities and social sciences, the people in psychology who are shirk-like people?
Yeah, you can think of it as an NSERC-SHRC split.
Okay.
Because we have multiple units that could fall into either category depending on the researchers. So follow the funding lines, SHRC versus NSERC.
Elaine, any questions online? Okay. And as you heard me saying, this is live stream broadcasted, but also a copy of it will become available. So there will be a link we will be sending it once it's posted. If you want to listen to the discussion and conversation again, or share it with your colleagues or collaborators. If you have a collaborator who couldn't make it today, please do so.
Any questions on the arts and science side? Got some folks from the research office are here, so Lisa and Monica, you want to wave? Great people to get in touch with. Arts and science has almost 1,000 professors. Sometimes it's not so easy to find someone, so that'd be a good place to start.
Right, actually on that note, we have been working very closely to identify sometimes collaborators. Okay? I send an email to, or a PI approaches me, and I send an email to Jay, and Jay directs me to Richard as well. So if you have an idea that you would like to reach out and identify PI, and you don't know who a good match might be, please contact us.
Yeah, and we'll send you in the. You can contact me, and I'll contact them, and Lisa and Monica will help you out with it.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay. If there are no questions, thank you for coming, and look forward to seeing your applications.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, good luck.